Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream, and thank you so much for tuning in for another show. Israel is intensifying its starvation campaign inside of the Gaza Strip, with more American mercenaries now participating in the attacks against the people who are seeking aid, with over 130 people reported to be killed today. Despite all of that, the resistance is escalating all of its attacks against Israel, and Donald Trump is saying that the prisoners of war will be returning very soon. In the meantime, there are more protests inside of Israel to call on Benjamin Netanyahu to have an all-out deal. These protests are now going to the American embassy because the people are speaking with the American establishment rather than Benjamin Netanyahu, going directly to the people who they think can actually bring results on the table. And we're going to talk all about this in this live stream, alongside the developments of Israel and its campaign inside of Syria too, and the move that Donald Trump had with the Epstein files. A lot of people talking about that now. Wall Street Journal published a report about Donald Trump, sending a letter 22 years ago to Jeffrey Epstein with very detailed information, to say the least. Trump is, of course, denying, and now he's outright having a legal issue, he's suing basically Wall Street Journal, Rupert Murdoch, for $10 billion US. Imagine that. So the man got really offended. But there are lots of talks about these Epstein files, and they're very relevant to what we're doing now and what's happening now on the Gaza front, especially, with Benjamin Netanyahu having so much say on what Donald Trump does. But firstly, let's begin with the most important thing. Is these people here, ladies and gentlemen, the people of the Gaza Strip, are starving to death. Israel is killing babies, infants, men, women, children, everyone who are seeking aid. People are going to get the last bit of flour, barely getting anything. Some people go on days without eating, and the Gaza Health Ministry is saying that people are coming now in their hundreds and even in their thousands to the hospitals in Gaza, the barely functioning hospitals in Gaza, with serious malnutrition, advanced stages of malnutrition. This was one of the most circulated images that actually represents that suffering of the people in Gaza. Children who are supposed to be going to school and studying, or going out on a break, doing about their daily activities, going with a bowl or anything that they have with them to try and get food from the food centers that are even active, because Israel targets them too. And today they targeted another food aid center to get foods, and sometimes for them and their family. Sometimes the people who work in these aid places don't have anything to eat with. That's with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, of the greatest democracy on earth and the biggest champions of human rights, the United States establishment and government, operating in Gaza and sending people food. But it doesn't look like these people are going to distribute food. Looks like they're going there to literally torture the people. How? Well, we had more images coming in from Gaza. Let's have a look at this video over here, published today. It was just published several hours back, about the American mercenaries inside of the Gaza Strip and how they distribute aid. Look at that. Spraying gas at people, shooting and warning. Is that aid? Is that America for you? Is that human rights for you? Is that the world's greatest democracy on earth? What is this exactly? This is what they're doing with the aid distribution. This is all an engineered campaign of starvation against the population. It's as if these Zionists, whether they're Israelis or Americans, they get pleasure out of seeing the population suffer. A population of over 2 million people, and they enjoy torturing them when they try and get it. Firstly, why are the people are even in this situation? Clearly, there's something wrong with the way you distribute aid, isn't it? But you already disabled the functioning of the main United Nations organizations that operate in Gaza that were established following the establishment of this depraved entity that will at some point in the very near future be completely wiped off the face of the earth. They basically started this organization because of them, UNRWA, because the Zionists ethnically cleansed Palestine and killed tens of thousands of people. They had an organization so they can have relief, provide relief for the people. But Israel, of course, went against it, and the United States had the answer. What's the answer? American thugs coming to the Gaza Strip with basically a license to kill or do whatever they want, clearly. Why? Because some of the decent people clearly there are some decent people who went there. Why? Because they were speaking about the atrocities of the American mercenaries. I spoke about one of them 2 weeks ago. He was saying that the American mercenaries, it's as if they have a license to kill and do whatever they want, and they're torturing the population. In the meantime, what they're trying to say, clearly everything is failing. Everything is a massive failure. Now, in the meantime, and despite this grave suffering from the population, I'm telling you, grave suffering, and this is, for example, Beit Hanun. Let me just show you. This is Beit Hanun in Gaza, by the way. For those of you who don't know, Israel literally flattened everything. And by the way, strategy they're now confirming. We're there to completely flatten every sort of building inside of the Gaza Strip. Despite that, and by divine miracles and human nature miracles and universal laws, the Palestinian resistance emerges time after time and shocks the whole planet, shocks the earth, shocks everyone with what they do against these depraved Zionist terrorists inside of the Gaza Strip. A few days back, the Israelis released footage of Palestinian fighters going towards an Israeli tank and exploding it. Now, and that was in Jabalia, by the way, was in the northern part of Gaza. Today, the Palestinian resistance released a video of this operation, which was a combination between several resistance groups inside of Gaza who carried out this ambush in Jabalia, where they, again, preparing their own weapons. And by the way, the Palestinian resistance denied that they're getting any sort of smuggling from Egypt or anything a couple of days ago. They said we're functioning with what we have. And yet again, another sign of, you can call it a divine involvement. I don't know what it is exactly, but these people are managing to fight Israel with whatever they have. We don't know exactly how they're managing to do it despite all of this destruction, but they're continuing. And they're saying we will never be defeated. And here they're showing another video of them targeting Israeli tanks in Jabalia, already destroyed Jabalia, when Israel already published the video before. Let's have a look exactly what the Palestinian resistance does, and we'll provide more input on this video.
بتعدي على بلاد ما نفضاش إلهم تعالوا
So as we can see, the Palestinian resistance fighters moving there freely and even recording the camera. You can see, by the way, the people are starving like the population. All of them are skinny and thin, but all of that didn't take away clearly from what they're publishing any of their determination to fight the Zionist depraved terrorists inside of Gaza. They went on to continue this operation by following, and this is, by the way, what Israel published previously. This is what the Israeli broadcasting published, this, of the Palestinian resistance fighter running towards a tank and planting a handheld device on a tank and running away and exploding it. In clearly an engineered thing in Israel to try and apply pressure on the government to reach a ceasefire, because Israel never used to do this before. They never published, it's as if nothing happened. You know, they were being slaughtered in Gaza since the beginning, but it's as if nothing happened. You know, whenever they need to confirm something, they will confirm if it's inevitable. For example, today, there was another serious security incident in Khan Yunis and multiple operations in 4 parts of the Gaza Strip, with the Palestinian resistance landing heavy blows on the child-killing Zionists in Gaza. This has been published by the Israeli media, clearly in an attempt to apply pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu to reach a ceasefire, because that's it, they gave up. Now, there's nowhere to go, really. I mean, the Israeli IDF chief of staff is saying we're accomplishing nothing, people are getting lost, and, you know, please get us a deal. Of course, he's saying, you know, we will continue to increase the attacks and what, all the types of garbage, you know, that they constantly spew when they haven't been able to do anything against the Palestinian fighters in 21 months of full-blown barbarism and genocide and acts worse than any medieval terror you have ever thought of. I mean, Satan himself wouldn't think of what the Israelis have done in Gaza. Backed by, of course, you know, the establishments that we know, and with, of course, the lack of action of the Arab regimes. Everyone knows that very well, from the close to the far off. Today, even the Palestinian Authority, headed by Abu Mazen, the big traitor, they prevented a protest to stop the genocide in Gaza, in Ramallah. They banned people from protesting. And here, by the way, the Palestinian resistance fighters continued to target 3 other Zionist terrorists, and with direct, like, 0 distance, and they were heard shouting after they targeted them. Let's have a look. Whenever these people are faced by Palestinian resistance fighters, they start fighting like sheep, and they probably fill up their diapers with you-know-what. I don't know if they had any, because they're probably running out. They need more supply now. Probably get some from China. Anyway, you get the message. 21 months in, the Zionists are getting a heavy beating from the Palestinian resistance. And that's what's leading, by the way, anything to do with any potential to de-escalate. That's the first and foremost thing. If there was no resistance in Gaza, there wouldn't be any talk about anything. Israel would have done whatever it wanted. It would have already expelled the population. No one would talk. But because there are people who are still preventing them from accomplishing their mission of total control in Gaza, that's why they still talk. Otherwise, why would they even talk? So the Palestinian side, funny enough, alongside the Israeli public, in their majority, by the way, are looking to end the war. So the majority of the people, both in Gaza and in Israel, want to end the war. Regardless of the view, what they view, do they legitimize? No, that's a separate story. They want to end the war. Today, there were more protests, by the way, in Israel, and the momentum is getting bigger, which explains Netanyahu's escalation in Syria, by the way, and maybe a sign that he might try and do something else. But there were more protests in Israel today, with thousands of people marching towards the American embassy. You can see American and Israeli flags, because they know that the American administration can apply pressure on Benjamin Netanyahu to stop the genocide. And their concern now, in their own words, in the words of the families of the prisoners of war and their representatives, they want an all-out deal. That's what they want. And the protest was for an all-out deal. People saying, stop this politics, stop playing with the lives of the people. One of the family members of a prisoner of war in Gaza said that there shouldn't have been one Israeli soldier even scratched to get the people back, which is, by the way, which could have happened, by the way, because the Palestinian resistance already offered Israel previously to have a deal, have an all-out deal, in return for a ceasefire. That's it. We're not going to continue the operation. We'll have a deal. You return our prisoners. You will return yours. We'll call it a day. Israel, of course, did not want that. Benjamin Netanyahu started the genocide campaign. And we are where we are at the moment. But clearly, he doesn't have a mandate. He have a very small minority government now with members resigning from the government and a threat to totally collapse the government, which something could be imminent, by the way, because there is no conscription law, and many who are still in the government are causing a lot of problems and headaches for Benjamin Netanyahu. But again, I spoke about multiple times the fact that Netanyahu could actually eventually get to a deal just before the Israeli Knesset breaks, because then he could basically have no headache from his extreme elements, or like, there is no like there's extreme and there's no extreme, all of them are extreme, but the more extreme elements inside of his government to try and reach a ceasefire, and they wouldn't be able to challenge him if there would be any sort of ceasefire. In the meantime, Trump is saying that a ceasefire in Gaza is going to happen very soon. How is a ceasefire going to happen very soon? Well, Donald Trump, he clearly has some information, or he has made a deal with Benjamin Netanyahu, and he's saying with confidence today that 10 more hostages, according to him, will be released very soon. Again, how soon, where from, what's gonna happen exactly? What is that? So what could that mean exactly? That could mean that Donald Trump already made that deal with Benjamin Netanyahu to have that ceasefire agreement to begin potentially in the beginning of August or towards the end of July, and get the temporary deal going. A temporary deal whilst providing certain guarantees to the Palestinian side that there will be talks to completely end the war, because the Palestinian resistance will not enter any sort of ceasefire, according to them, without any confirmed guarantees that there will be an ending to the war. And we heard, of course, previous reports that Donald Trump himself will be guaranteeing any sort of ceasefire. Israelis are saying, of course, as usual, Hamas is obstructing the progress. But hey, we're talking about pathological liars at the end of the day, and they lie more than they breathe. Therefore, we can't take that seriously, because it was only Benjamin Netanyahu who has been obstructing a deal for a very long time, since the beginning. And that's not something like that others say. But Israelis say that too. They say that Benjamin Netanyahu has been the man who prevents and has prevented the ceasefire from the beginning. In the meantime, and in another very big example of the state of lawlessness that we're living in, a British Israeli solicitor, clearly on behalf of Netanyahu in Israel, is telling the ICC chief prosecutor, who was already threatened, by the way, by so many people. He was threatened by David Cameron, he was threatened by senators in the United States, he was threatened by other Western leaders, as he said. But now a British Israeli linked with Netanyahu, advisor, is saying that this man you will be destroyed if you don't drop charges, if you expand the charges to other people. Why? Because the ICC is looking to expand the wanted criminal list to, well, the other terrorists in Israel. It's not just Netanyahu and Gallant, it's everyone who has been involved in this. We have this report here in the Middle East Eye. ICC lawyer linked to Netanyahu advisor warned Khan to drop war crimes probe or be destroyed. And he's a British Israeli lawyer who met with the chief prosecutor in May. He said he made suggestions about Palestine case, but there was absolutely no threat. The report said the British chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court was warned in May that if arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant were not withdrawn, he and the ICC would be destroyed outright. The warning was delivered to Karim Khan by Nicholas Kaufman, a British Israeli defense lawyer at the court, who told Khan he had spoken to Netanyahu's legal advisor and, according to a note of the meeting lodged on file at the ICC and seen by the Middle East Eye, was authorized to make him a proposal that would allow Khan to climb down the tree. He told Khan to apply to the court to reclassify the warrants and underlying information as confidential. Typical Zionism, you know. Let's do the dirty work in the dark. We don't want anything to be clear. That's how Western establishments protected Israel this whole time, and how Zionists with an ounce of a brain used to operate up until Netanyahu came and his ministers to operate, that's it, in the open and tell people exactly what they want to do, rather than, you know, whitewash things, hide behind curtains. That's the typical Zionist trait, you know. Oh, keep them confidential, right? Keep them classified so that people don't know our garbage, you know. Let's continue with our garbage in the dark and we can talk our way about that. Maybe we'll offer you a few million here and there. They tried the carrot and stick with him, of course, and after he denied to drop the charges, what they do, they started to pressure him more. Threats against his family. Now this new threat that he will be destroyed. But before that, they started to fabricate sexual charges against him. And he had to take indefinite leave. Indefinite, as in on a definite break from his job. And according to this lawyer, keeping it confidential, right, would allow Israel to access the details of allegations, which it could not do at the time, and challenge them in private without the outcome being made public. Of course, why should it be made public? You know that these people slaughter children. Why should it be made public? Let's keep everything hidden. But Kaufman warned that if it emerged that the chief prosecutor was applying for more arrest warrants for far-right ministers Itamar Ben-Gvir and Bezalel Smotrich over their promotion of illegal Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank, then all options would be off the table. We clearly have a direct threat here, and it didn't end there. It was crowned with this. They will destroy you, and they will destroy the court. Wow. And Khan was there with his wife. Clearly the man wants evidence with him so that he doesn't say, oh, it's just me. Look, my wife was listening too. Who also attended the meeting. Both understood this to be a threat. Well, of course it's a threat. I mean, how else can you understand it? According to the note of the meeting seen by the Middle East Eye, Kaufman spoke with the Middle East Eye. Wow. I do not deny that I told Mr. Khan that he should be looking for a way to extricate himself from his errors. Ooh, how arrogant. I am not authorized to make any proposals on behalf of the Israeli government, nor did I. Of course you didn't, you know. Again, you know, everything in U-turns and upturns and, you know, to try and cover their backs. You're a Netanyahu-linked solicitor operating from Britain. Well, what are you talking about exactly? Kaufman said he had told Khan that he feared that bringing more arrest warrants would encourage further U.S. sanctions that would risk destroying the court. and that adopting a policy like Samson and the bringing of the whole court down on him and his employees would not serve the purpose for which the court was conceived. Is anyone asking a question how a country, a small little tiny genocidal entity, apartheid entity, racist supremacist entity, is constantly talking about a Samson option, which is basically destroy everything, and they have nuclear bombs? And is anyone worried about that? Or is that also part of, you know, the values that they represent? Is that okay? Or is that not okay? Or is it, you know, selective okayness? Or, you know. Netanyahu's office, of course, did not respond. They continued here. At the time of the meeting, Khan was facing investigation over sexual misconduct. They're talking about the claims of sexual misconduct. 2 weeks later, Khan stepped down on indefinite leave following the publication. That's previously. Clearly, we have a man here working on behalf of a wanted war criminal, going to the ICC and outright threatening to destroy the court. And it seems like this is like not alarming or anything of the sort. But the ICC is clearly still going ahead with it, and the ICC looking like, in the meantime, Israel is having more attempts inside of Syria, or has had more attempts in Syria to cause problems. It's as if it's okay, by the way, you know, for this country to target any other country and for that to be viewed as fine and acceptable and no problem whatsoever. And they have operatives inside of Syria. Clearly, they opened the borders for people to go into certain areas. And these people are roaming around now inside of Syria in certain places, and I'll get you to what happened exactly, with Israeli flags, like we can see in this video over here. This man was recorded in the province of Suwaida, roaming around with an Israeli flag. Going there, raising the Israeli flag. Okay. Why is he raising the Israeli flag? What does Israel have to do with it? Well, it has to do with one of the religious clerics in that area. One, of course, it doesn't represent all of them, called Hikmat al-Hajri, who is an Israeli agent, operates with Israel and operates with some of the religious leaders inside of Israel to let Israel in. Up until a moment came and his thugs and people started to kill people in surrounding areas. Authorities were asked to come in, split them apart, and then he told them, no, go out, because he previously was constantly saying negative stuff about them. Up until the relatives and other groups in Syria, related families and tribes to those who were being killed in hundreds, decided to go and have a move to support these people. Then he called the authorities again, and he was asking about, by the way, international support. When he said international support and Israel is playing on this minority card in Syria, Israel carried out strikes in Syria and killed some of the government forces. They attacked the defense ministry too in Syria, and they sent some people to that area, and this was one of their agents over there raising an Israeli flag. Then we saw hundreds of cars coming in from all sorts of parts. And once he saw his size and that Israel can't really rescue him, and the fact that the authorities already had a deal with Donald Trump to lift the sanctions of the country, deals with the countries surrounding them too, they realized that there's a limit to what Benjamin Netanyahu can do to try and save face, and also there's a limit to how much he can escalate inside of Syria, because he knows there would be no way out. All of his army is exhausted from the beating that they got inside of the Gaza Strip. All of his capabilities have been exposed. Well, he tried to kind of maximize on what was happening inside of Gaza and have this attack against Iran to show that, look, it's the Israeli era, that's it. Only for him to beg Donald Trump to intervene and take him down this ladder that's called Iran and the potential of war of attrition, because Iran was prepared for a war of attrition against Israel. And they later on begged, Donald Trump. Donald Trump landed these attacks that really did nothing apart from certain holes. Everything is intact. Their military program, few facilities were attacked, yeah, but the nuclear program is intact. All of their missiles are intact. Everything is perfectly running, and they're recovering too. Now, he realized that, well, you can't do everything with the airstrikes, and there are other implications too, and you can't indefinitely send people in or keep borders open 24/7. That's on the front there. Now there are more declarations that this traitor in this province is calling the Syrian authorities again, oh, please come and save us now, when he realized that these Zionist masters can't protect him. But now it's going to be different, because there most likely will be some sort of permanent solution in that area, because at the end of the day, they can't keep that going on. Why? Because the majority of the Syrian people, at the end of the day, they want a unified country. They want human rights. They've had 15 years. They want to live their life. They don't want to go into another war. And they don't want to be a part of this Zionist agenda to balkanize Syria. And Israel is working heavily to try and do that. They tried before as well. They're trying again now, but clearly this time its agents in the area clearly got the lesson. Now we're going to move on to this Epstein case and Donald Trump. The Epstein case is a very important case because this man was a Mossad operative planted there inside of the United States with the knowledge of several people in the establishments inside of the United States. Some people in the intelligence community inside of the United States knew exactly what he was doing, but the people on top of them told them not to reveal all of the information. His death was very shady, was very dodgy. The way his body was taken out, the way he committed suicide, when he was supposedly should have been monitored 24/7 in the secret special cell that he was in, which is like basically a hotel room, yeah, television, everything, and he was supposed to be monitored 24/7. All of a sudden, man kills himself, and the authorities decide to show his face when they're taking him out. You know, can it be clearer than that? Why are you making an effort to show his face that much? And anyway, when they showed that face, it wasn't really matching to Epstein himself. So there are concerns there and speculations about the authenticity of the death of Epstein himself. Probably changed identity, disappeared somewhere. It was a very powerful, reaching figure, very shady past also in how he reached to these levels. This man had very big ties with several people. The presidents were there, leaders, businessmen going to this island of his with a cult-like dome over there. Lord knows what he was doing there. But he was clearly raping American girls. That's what he was doing. Literally, he was kidnapping American girls by manipulation, whatever you want to call it, small girls, taking them to this island to provide these services for these people. He's planting cameras everywhere, and I hope you have a blackmailing network. There were suspicions from the beginning that Donald Trump was part of this network. Why? Because, well, firstly, he had relations with Jeffrey Epstein. He was seen with Jeffrey Epstein. He doesn't deny that he had relations with Epstein, and his excuse was, well, everyone knew Jeffrey Epstein in Palm Beach and what have you, and all of that talk. And during the campaign of Donald Trump, people within his campaign were saying that we're going to release the Epstein files. We're going to release the Epstein files. Why on earth is Ghislaine Maxwell in prison? Doesn't she have information? Why isn't that information being made public? Is it because the people who are still serving or still have power are still there? What's happening? Anyway, they were saying, yeah, we will release them, up until we had this facade of like a 1% release of things that are irrelevant, not the whole Epstein files. We were looking for a list with names of everyone. The people are entitled to know. What do you mean a Mossad agent operating in the United States, getting the world's leaders and wealthiest people on an island and kidnapping American girls and raping them on these islands? What is that? Is that the world's greatest nation on earth? That happens and it goes as if nothing happened? And then they silence them with hush money and send them people who are wearing ties to threaten them in their homes, to threaten the girls, by the way, who were victims. That's those who dared to kind of challenge it, because, you know, there was a case and you had these Netflix shows and all of that. So the Trump fan base was expecting Mr. America First here to release the information, only for them to find out that Mr. America First isn't releasing the information. As a matter of fact, he's saying in videos, well, that's not important, boring stuff. Nothing happened. All sorts of the people are kind of getting confused, and this is his fan base. That's number one. You're coming, we voted for you, number one, to end the wars and bring peace, only for us to see that you lick the boots of Benjamin Netanyahu and follow his orders. Then you told us you're going to be releasing the files. Why are you not releasing the files? Do you have something to do with it? If you're not worried about it, he would be the first one releasing it. If it was something not to do with him and against some of his, enemies, right, or opponents, he would have loved it. Trump. I get confused between Trump and Netanyahu because they're very similar. But clearly, there's something going on. Anyway, Wall Street Journal published an article. That article said that Donald Trump in 2003 sent a letter to Jeffrey Epstein that included documents. That was among documents included in evidence assembled by the federal criminal investigators as part of their probe with Epstein, by the way. That letter included like these hidden messages and, explicit stuff, in a clear indication that the relationship between the two was more than just, oh, I know you from Palm Beach because everyone knows you from Palm Beach. First, who are you even? Man coming out of nowhere, suspicious career. All of a sudden, he has the most expensive places in Manhattan and a private island and his own network on the island, by the way, serious stuff. His own network in the island. It's as if, it's a country. And world leaders going and coming back and going and coming back. Wall Street Journal reported this, but the man got really angry. And now he's saying that I'm going to file a lawsuit. Not just any lawsuit, by the way. $10 billion US. Imagine that, $10 billion US. He's suing the Wall Street Journal and Rupert Murdoch, owning, of course, Wall Street Journal, for $10 billion US over a Wall Street Journal story on Epstein birthday letter. And let's stop here again for a second. You're the president of the United States. Are you, do you have the time even to start filing these lawsuits and for 10 billion as well? Secondly, if you're that innocent, why don't you release the files then? Then you would give everyone comfort, wouldn't you? And reassurance. And first and foremost, your base, right? American MAGA supporters. Make America great again and America first and all these slogans. They want the Epstein files to be released. As a matter of fact, in your campaigns, Trump, people were chanting Genocide Joe. You had anti-genocide people voting for you because of your promises. They wanted the Epstein list. They wanted you to focus on America first. They didn't want interference with other countries or dragging the United States to other wars, let alone having an attack. Doesn't matter how theatrical it is, on behalf of a genocidal entity that has been committing war crimes and genocide for 2 years against the Palestinian people. Why doesn't he release the files? And cuts a long story short. Then, if you release the files, you will have solid evidence. But you see how much of a difficult position he's in now, by the way? And it doesn't really look good on him. Why? Because if you were so certain, and if you're suing this man, release the files then. Release everything. Show that you're not included in anything in these files. Or do these files actually include Donald Trump? And is that letter actually real? Because we can't verify if the letter is real or not. I'm not saying that the file is real. And by the way, I'm not saying that Trump has had dealings, as in was part of the, blackmailing. I'm not saying that, but could he have been that? Could it have been a case of Trump actually being in those files? Was he blackmailed? I mean, that's the only thing that we can ask. Was he blackmailed, and can that explain his situation or actions or lack thereof? So if you're so innocent, release the files and let the people see them. That way you would close the whole thing and sue Murdoch and everyone else who said for sure that you were part of this blackmailing ring with Jeffrey Epstein, and seal it. But instead, what does he do? Whenever he's asked about this case, he says, oh no, it's boring. Why are you even asking that? Why are you even mentioning the Epstein files? We have more pressing things to talk about. What more pressing things than a man having the most sensitive information about the people running your country? What's more pressing than that? If there's a network, if there's an elite, if there's a secret group of people running things, we deserve to know. I mean, it's very simple. If there is. If there are files, and there are files, and that's why Maxwell is still in prison, by the way, then show the people and prove your innocence. But clearly he's not saying that, and that doesn't look good on him, which again could explain why he's trying to hide the files and not publish these files. And these were the main things that I want to share with you in this live stream, and we'll open up the space for some community participation for the time left that we have in this live stream. And if you have any questions or comments, if you mind highlighting them if possible, just so I don't miss them. And again, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to the show. Natural, thank you for you're super much appreciated. Let's go to the beginning of the chat. Let's see if we had anything missed there. Was there a resistance group in Syria shooting rockets into Israel? There were irregular kind of attacks, whether it was previously, as in under the previous administration in Syria or the current interim administration, but nothing very significant. Previously, the administration in Syria allowed more groups that were resisting Israel to operate more freely inside of Syria. Currently, more reports about more restrictions are coming from Syria, but Syria has never been, in terms of direct attacking Israel that much, but rather a link, for example, between Iran and Hezbollah. By the way, there was another thing that I wanted to talk to you about. Today, Mike Huckabee, the American ambassador to Israel, he went to the West Bank. He went to the West Bank, why? Because there was a Christian Palestinian village that was attacked. Attacked by settlers, by the way, who constantly attack places. All of a sudden, Huckabee says, we can't have these attacks on, Christians in the West Bank, and we can't have attacks on churches or mosques or synagogues. Why? Because some of them were also Americans. Several. Of course, Israel does that 24/7 in the West Bank, does that regularly in the West Bank. But you have people who are facing a genocide with your mercenaries in Gaza are doing that. Isn't that worth a visit? But anyway, in Israel, they're now calling to expel him, some people, to that level, as if they didn't even want the American ambassador to Israel to sympathize with a few people in the West Bank who were attacked with the support, by the way, of the Israeli terror army to attack churches inside of the West Bank, in a place called Taibi in the West Bank. They just carried out an attack against the only Catholic church in Gaza. They have a couple of churches, but one of them is the Catholic church. They wounded the parish priest over there and killed 2 people who work in the area, elderly. I mean, one of them was over 80, one of them was over 60. That church was supporting also refugees, sheltering people. We didn't hear him having this outrage or anything. But because of his move, because of this small move that he had, by the way, in the West Bank, people in Gaza are saying now, you need to expel him. Ned, what is the status of these other armed parties in Gaza? Mahmoud, who are they? The ones who carried out this video that I posted previously were members of the PIJ. They are called Al-Quds Brigades, and the armed wing of Hamas are called Al-Qassam Brigades. There were 2 other groups who carried out operations. One of them was called Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades, which shoot off from the Fatah movement, by the way. And there was another attack that was conducted by the Palestinian Resistance Committee's armed group called the Salah ad-Din Brigade in another part of the Gaza Strip. But there are other movements too. One of them is called the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. They have an armed group called the Abu Ali Mustafa Brigades, and you have the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine that has an armed group called the Umar al-Qasim Martyrs Brigades. So in total, there are 13 armed resistance movements in Gaza who operate against Israel. The two just ones, though, are Al-Qassam Brigades and Al-Quds Brigades, who carry out the majority of the operations that are published, by the way. And thank you, everyone, for participating in the chat. Netanyahu, Faraz, he did not apologize. They showed remorse. You know, they're always shy of apologizing. You know, they express sorrow or say we regret. You know, express sorrow or we regret, but they never say I'm sorry. They never apologize. They're the chosen ones. How can they apologize? And MCFC, my friend, bless you, my friend. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support. Nice picture you have there. Thank you very much, my friend. And MCFC and Yuri Krankiest. I hope I pronounced that right. Thank you very much. Let's see if we have anything else. Okay, guys, we'll wrap it up here. Oh, hold on a second. Nahum, what is the PA doing about the settlers? The Palestinian Authority of the West Bank allows the settlers and protects the settlers. They constantly allowed Israel to expand in the West Bank ever since the Oslo Accords in 1993. In 1993, Israel was supposed to give the Palestinian Authority more authority over the West Bank and the Gaza Strip administration, with different types of responsibilities depending on the actual area that is split between A, B, and C, with A being the most under Palestinian Authority, but with ultimate security responsibility belonging to Israel. When they started the Oslo Accords, you had 100,000 settlers or squatters in the West Bank. Now you have approximately 1 million, over 900,000. By the way, most of them are from the United States. Huckabee confirmed just over a month ago that 700,000 Americans live in Israel. What do you mean live in Israel? Why would they want to go and live there? They go to the West Bank. And they are these settlers. You know, you talk about the settlers. They come from the United States. Most of them, by the way. Free, live for free, get what you want, attack a Palestinian, shoot a Palestinian, slaughter some Palestinian, burn Palestinian, and live for free. And the Palestinian Authority is sitting there. They're getting billions in bribe money, stealing foreign aid, corruption. Even the Arab states that deal with them know that very well. But they're doing nothing. As a matter of fact, today, Israel, the past 2 days, by the way, Israel took more responsibility over the Cave of the Patriarch, by the way, that the Palestinian Authority had some influence in. as in some control. Now, the Israeli government removed every single aspect of connection between the Palestinian Authority to the Cave of the Patriarch and moved it to the hands of a Zionist settlement in the West Bank. And today they prevented a protest in Ramallah just because they wanted to protest genocide. Imagine. So there is no hope there, unfortunately. But again, the notion that there should be some sort of expectation, from any of these people is absurd. The only thing that anyone in this movement needs to think about is he or she does. I mean, clearly, Arab states, you can forget about that, or any establishment. Hardly anyone does anything. Few do. It's there's more and more delegitimization. There are more countries starting to activate, but that's still not stopping what's happening in Gaza. Therefore, the people who are active need to look at what they can do. Kay's Landscaper, do you think a new party in the UK would help the situation? It can help the situation. But to change things in the actual establishment in Britain would require a big effort. I mean, the closest Britain was to a change was during the time where Jeremy Corbyn was leading the Labour Party, and him reaching the leadership of the Labour was like something very big on its own. Zionists in Britain and outside of Britain went to the Zionist lobby started to work against him and have these anti-Semitism charges and what have you. Brainwashing the people, of course, as usual. And many were brainwashed, of course. Which led to him losing. Of course, you can have your comments on the campaign itself. Was it, fierce enough or whatever it is? But that was like the moment that things could have changed under Jeremy Corbyn. Doesn't mean you need to agree with everything or disagree with everything, but in that domain of Palestine and Israel, the man was the fiercest one, and he still is an advocate. But now there's a new party, and more people are joining. It could. What the most important thing is to break the two-party system, because the two-party system is intended to be that way to mislead people as well. In many cases, you don't know who's left and right. But if you look at policies, there's no left and right. It's all the same. A couple of popular things here and there to show the people who vote for them, that look, we're doing that. But at the core of it, no. Same support, same money, same influence, same finance, same foreign policy. But party, the main thing to kind of break the norm, right? Shake things around a little to give a better prospect for the future too. Sayed, do you think Iran and Zionist entity war will continue sooner rather than later? I think Israel realized that they are very, very limited in what they can do to Iran. And because they realized they were very limited, they had to beg the United States to go and participate. Then Donald Trump went in and participated to give Netanyahu the exit. And Netanyahu immediately exited. By the way, do you know that Iran did not declare a ceasefire? It was America and Israel who declared a ceasefire. Iran said if they stop the hostilities, we stop the hostilities. Saying that, you're talking about a psychopathic entity altogether, a psychopathic apartheid regime of terror attacking 7 countries, you know, committing a genocide in Gaza. So there will always be a problem there, so long as that regime is there. And I hope that clarifies with do you see Israel attacking Iran again? I think they've taken a step back now, but again, there would be, there would be an opportunity for that to happen. 'Cause look, they started to doubt what Benjamin Netanyahu was doing in Israel immediately after the attack. At first, everyone was like supporting him, and we finally attacked Iran, and we did this and we did that. Because things didn't go the way they planned, and they didn't take down the establishment, and they didn't prevent the attacks coming against them, they didn't take down the program, things started to escalate further against Netanyahu and the campaign in Iran. He was hoping that by number one, by attacking Iran, because everything you need to relate it to Netanyahu's political path, by the way, because if you don't, you'll be misled. He attacked Iran on the same day that there was supposed to be a vote to take down the government. Then he told the elements in the Orthodox coalition, those who are in the government, to give him some time to finish the war with Iran and not do anything to take down the government because he's at war. He tricked them. That's why we had the resignations after that, and this semi-resignation now from another element from within that coalition. But he did not get the popularity and boost that he wanted. So in the polls, he didn't gain that much, Netanyahu. Orange, what is your opinion on Indian news reporting? They seem pretty pro-Palestine, even though India is pro-Israel. Well, yeah, there are some networks that are based in India that bring more facts than others, whereas others can be more misleading. But again, with them, it's about the content at the end of the day. So some of them would bring more accurate information from the ground, for example, in Gaza, or when they spoke about the war between Iran and Israel. And it's important, of course, to fact check all of that to make sure you get the correct information. Also diversify the sources, by the way, because you can't just have one source, or if you like a certain network, to just follow them. And the best way, by the way, there are a lot of people on the ground, and that's the best thing, because you're talking about live updates. Today, like if you want to read something on a newspaper or whatever, if we're talking about actual papers, that's literally from yesterday. Things are live every second, whether it's on social media or, you know. So it's very important to diversify. Some of them are good, of course, because I do follow some of them in India and South Asia as well. But the Modi himself is very close to Benjamin Netanyahu. I will wrap it up there, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in for another show. Thank you so much for everyone who participated in the chat. Sorry, of course, if I didn't reach all of your questions or comments, but appreciate your participation. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay blessed, and I will see you soon in the next video. Peace, everyone. Salam.